Hello everyone. This video that I'm recording tonight is to be broadcast on January 20th, 2022. This devotion will cover those verses found in the Gospel of John at the 19th chapter, verses 31 to 42. This gets us to the end of John's, or the end of the 19th chapter of John's Gospel. We're not to the end of the Gospel yet. 2 more chapters after this. So tomorrow we will start chapter 20. Where Jesus has just died where we left off on the cross. He'd given up his life on the cross. But here we have them double checking and piercing his side, and also we have the burial of Jesus according to John's gospel. We'll talk about all those things. So let's just go right to it, shall we? John chapter 19 verses 31 to 42. Since it was the day of preparation, the Jews did not want the bodies left on the cross during the Sabbath, especially because that Sabbath was a day of great solemnity. So they asked Pilate to have the legs of the crucified men broken and the bodies removed. Then the soldiers came and broke the legs of the first and of the other who had been crucified with him. But when they came to Jesus and saw that he was already dead, they did not break his legs, because Instead, one of the soldiers pierced his side with a spear, and at once blood and water came out. He who saw this has testified, so that you also may believe. His testimony is true, and he knows that he tells the truth. These things occurred so the scripture might be fulfilled, none of his bones shall be broken. And again, another passage of scripture says, they will look on the one whom they have pierced. After these things, Joseph of Arimathea, who was a disciple of Jesus, though a secret one, because of his fear of the Jews, asked Pilate to let him take away the body of Jesus. Pilate gave him permission, so he came and removed his body. Nicodemus, who had at first come to Jesus by night, also came, bringing a mixture of myrrh and aloes, weighing about 100 pounds. They took the body of Jesus and wrapped it with the spices and linen cloths, according to the burial custom of the Jews. Now there was a garden in the place where he was crucified, and in the garden there was the new tomb, in which no one had ever been laid. And so, because it was a Jewish day of preparation, and the tomb was nearby, they laid Jesus there. Okay. First thing, there's a few differences here in this gospel, of course. Here, John has introduced the piercing of the side, and that is to fulfill prophecy, and we look to that as fulfilling the verses found in Zechariah chapter 12, verses 10, which says, and they shall look to me whom they have, and they shall look to me whom they have pierced. Then they shall mourn for him as one mourns for an only son. That's Zechariah. And that is, again, is why that verse is there. Also about the breaking of the bones. Very nice thing to do. We need them to hurry up and die, so go break their legs, which would cause them to die on the cross during crucifixion much more quickly, because part of the process of dying from being crucified would be that your arms and putting stress on your body so you can't breathe as well. It's putting pressure on your diaphragm so you can't get a good deep breath, and barely with your feet pushing up off of the foot plate and where they had your foot nailed to the cross, you could hold yourself up a little bit so maybe you could get a little more air and sort of last a little longer. You're fighting for every little breath. But if you break the legs, then they can't hold themselves up, and the whole weight is down on the diaphragm, and they're not going to last very long at all. They can't get a breath at all. So they're going to be expended very quickly that way. Very, perhaps sounds brutal, but perhaps it's more merciful than not. But at any rate, when they come to Jesus, he's already died. He was beaten so savagely. And again, I would recommend seeing The Passion of Christ by Mel Gibson, that was so many years ago, to watch, to understand what Jesus most likely went through. He would have just been a bloody pulp. But here, they also, beyond that, they were breaking the legs. That is to also fulfill a psalm, Psalm 34, verse 20. He protects all his bones, not one of them will be broken. And so those two things, we have two bits of scripture here that we look to as being fulfilled here of prophecy about the Christ. The burial scene in John's gospel is a little different. Here we have two players. We have Joseph of Arimathea, who is in the other three, the synoptics as well, but he comes by himself. Okay, And in Luke's gospel, the women follow and see where the body is buried. But here we have someone else. Nicodemus shows up. And we also learn in Luke's gospel that Joseph is a member of the Sanhedrin. He's one of the council. He's a secret. It says here he's a secret one, but for fear of the Jews. He's afraid to let other people know that he's a follower of Christ. But somehow or another, Nicodemus and him know Nicodemus is also on the Sanhedrin. So they're aware of each other. So the two of them in John's gospel take the body and take it. And actually, this gospel in John's gospel, the body is prepared before it's buried. That's not the way it is in the Synoptics at all. In fact, I believe one of them mentions that they go because the body hadn't been prepared. I didn't read that. It just popped into my head now. But one of them does say that. And so here we have something totally different. We have 100 pounds of spices and aloes that are brought to prepare the body. And it said that the normal amount that would be used to prepare a body would be a single pound, 1 pound of these expensive spices and aloes to rub the body with, to kind of cover up the smell, is what the idea is of the decomposing body. But here, this is a king's funeral, is what we're looking at. In fact, it's greater than that, because there is in history a story of a high-ranking official that they were so lavish at that they would have had 40 pounds of spices. But Jesus is beyond that. This is over twice that. This is 100 pounds, which is a little different than the pound that we use in our system. It's a little, the Roman pound's not quite the same measurement. It's a little lighter, I believe. But at any rate, the idea is the same. It's the lavishness. This is a king's burial. This is a royal deal. This is one that we are honoring. This is how important Jesus is. The cost of this, for whoever, whether Joseph or Nicodemus or together, the two of them pooled their resources to purchase his 100 pounds of spices. This is an expensive thing. He's worth the cost. And they are risking their own lives here by going before Pilate and being seen taking the body and burying it, preparing the body and burying it. So they are very much at risk here, and they've also expended a great deal of their own resources to do this. Jesus is important to them. What cost, and that brings us to the devotion here part of the life application. What price are we willing to pay to honor Jesus and what he did for us? These men have honored Christ and what he's done for them. He has died in their place. That's what we believe. He's died in all our place. Those of us that cling to him, what are we willing to pay? Are we willing to sacrifice perhaps our own lives? This is what these two men are doing. I almost said young men, but I have no idea how old they are. They're probably not young men being on the Sanhedrin. They are risking it all. They're risking their fortune. They're risking their fate. They're all in, as they say, it appears. The sad thing is that they don't show themselves until Nicodemus came at night to Jesus. He was hiding. Joseph was a secret one because of his fears. The sadness is what would have happened had they come forward earlier. Were there more secret followers that were afraid of everybody else? I think many times that happens. We're afraid of everybody else, the other, and we don't speak up. And if we would speak up, we'd find out that there's others that are in the same boat as us. They're not speaking up because they're afraid too. I think that's happens considerable amount in history. I think perhaps at this point in history that's happening again in the world. So we do need to be willing to speak up that we are followers of Christ. We need to be willing to speak up and be counted. And we do need to be willing to pay the cost. So that's where I'm going to leave you at today. We will be coming back with chapter 20 next week with the resurrection. So we're going to get down to we've gotten through the bad stuff, the hard stuff, the icky stuff, and now we're going to get into the more enlightening stuff. Maybe not enlightened, but enlightening and the more upbeat stuff tomorrow. So with that, be a blessing to someone today. please, please, please. And if you like these videos, please like and subscribe and share. We'd love to have more of you coming to see us. And feel free to comment as well. All right. God bless and be a blessing to someone today. Bye-bye.